The last morning I spent with my husband, he made me coffee exactly the way I liked it, strong enough to paint with, just a whisper of cream. I remember watching his hands as he stirred, those familiar fingers wrapped around the spoon, thinking how lucky I was that this man knew me so completely. "You're staring again, Chloe," Colin said, sliding the mug across our marble kitchen island. His smile had that early morning softness I'd fallen in love with 12 years ago. Just appreciating the view, I wrapped my hands around the warm ceramic, breathing in the rich aroma. "Someone has to stroke your ego before you face the board meeting." He leaned across the counter and kissed me, tasting of toothpaste and promise. "I'd rather you stroke something else." "Later," I laughed, pushing him away. "Some of us have actual work to do." The autumn sunlight streamed through our kitchen windows, painting everything in honey gold. It was the kind of perfect October morning that made me believe in forever. Crisp air, leaves dancing outside, the comfortable rhythm of our shared routine. Colin adjusted his tie in the reflection of the microwave, and I pretended not to notice him checking his phone for the third time in 5 minutes. "Nervous about the presentation?" I asked, though I knew he'd nail it. He always did. "Just want everything perfect." He ran a hand through his dark hair, messing it up in exactly the way that made my heart skip. "Speaking of perfect, dinner tonight? That new place on Madison? The one with the month-long waiting list." I may have pulled some strings. His grin was infectious. 8 o'clock? It's a date. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. "Though I should warn you, Cameron's been talking my ear off about their wine list. I might get carried away." "Get as carried away as you want." He grabbed his briefcase, then paused. "Hey, I love you, you know that." Something in his voice made me look up. For a split second, there was something in his eyes. Something heavy, almost sad. But then he smiled, and it was gone so fast, I convinced myself I'd imagined it. "Love you too," I said, watching him head for the door. "Knock 'em dead." Those were the last words I said to my husband before the call came. Before everything I thought I knew about my life shattered like a wine glass hitting concrete. I was in the middle of a budget meeting when my phone lit up. Unknown number. I usually ignored those. But something, intuition, fate, whatever you want to call it, made me excuse myself to answer it. "Mrs. Walsh," a woman's voice, clinical and careful. "This is Mount Sinai Hospital." The world tilted sideways. Hospitals don't call with good news. "There's been an accident, your husband's car." The rest blurred into white noise. Words like impact and pronounced at the scene floated past me like debris in a flood. I remember sliding down the wall, my knees giving out. Remember my assistant Jonah finding me there, phone still pressed to my ear long after the call ended. I didn't cry, not then. Instead, I went numb, operating on autopilot, as I called our lawyer, contacted the funeral home, did all the terrible things you're supposed to do when your world ends. Cameron came over with food I couldn't eat and words I couldn't hear. My sister Bailey left 17 voicemails I couldn't bring myself to return. That night, I sat alone in our bedroom, still in my work clothes, staring at Colin's side of the closet. His suits hung in perfect order: navy, charcoal, black. The green tie he'd worn that morning was tossed over the hamper, like any other day, like he'd be back to put it away properly. I picked it up, the silk smooth against my fingers, pressed it to my face, searching for his scent, and there it was, his cologne, but also something else, something floral, feminine. My hands shook as I examined the tie more closely. There, near the bottom, the faintest smudge of pink lipstick. I never wore pink lipstick. The tie slipped from my fingers as the first crack appeared in my carefully maintained shock. And finally, sitting there surrounded by the evidence of our shared life, I began to cry. Not delicate tears, but ugly, violent sobs that tore through me like shrapnel. I cried for the man I'd lost, for the life I thought we had. But mostly, I cried because some part of me, the part that noticed the phone checks, the late meetings, the subtle shifts in his behavior, had known something was wrong, and I'd chosen not to see it. I didn't know then that the lipstick was just the beginning. Didn't know that, in less than 48 hours, I'd discover exactly how deep the betrayal went. But that would come later. That night, I just cried until there was nothing left inside me but hollow space and questions without answers. And somewhere in that emptiness, something else began to take root. Something cold and sharp and hungry for truth. Funerals have a way of making everything feel like a dream. Standing in the church vestibule, I watched people file past, in a blur of black clothes and sympathetic murmurs. My dress felt too tight, my shoes too sharp. Everything was wrong, but in ways I couldn't quite name. "You're doing great," Cameron whispered, squeezing my hand. She hadn't left my side since arriving that morning, armed with coffee and emergency mascara. "Just breathe." I nodded, not trusting my voice. The lipstick-stained tie was buried in my dresser drawer, along with all the questions it raised. Today wasn't about questions. Today was about surviving. The church filled quickly. Colin had been well-liked, successful. Partners from his firm occupied the first few rows, their wives clutching tissues with manicured hands. Our neighbors, our friends, even his old college roommate who'd flown in from Seattle, all here to say goodbye to a man I was starting to realize I might never really knew. Still no sign of Bailey. My calls had gone straight to voicemail for 2 days straight. Even our mother, who'd been dead for 5 years, would have been appalled at her absence. "The service is about to start." Jonah appeared at my elbow, radiating quiet competence. "Do you want me to say something about the eulogy?" I shook my head. "I'll do it. I have to." The walk to the podium felt endless. My heels clicked against marble, each step echoing like gunshots in the hushed sanctuary. The sealed casket loomed to my left, draped in white roses. I forced myself not to look at it. Colin was, my voice cracked. I gripped the podium harder, knuckles white. Colin was the kind of man who made everything seem possible. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. Every carefully crafted sentence about his kindness, his generosity, his love, they all felt hollow now. But I pushed through, painting the picture everyone expected. The grieving widow, celebrating a perfect marriage cut tragically short. That's when I saw them. At first, I thought grief was making me hallucinate. They stood in the shadow of the back entrance. My sister Bailey, wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, and beside her, Colin. My Colin, alive, breathing, his arm around my sister's waist. The eulogy died in my throat. The paper slipped from my fingers, floating to the floor like a surrendering flag. Someone gasped, probably Cameron, who had followed my frozen stare to the back of the church. The congregation turned as one. The silence shattered into shocked whispers and muffled exclamations. Through it all, I stood paralyzed, watching my dead husband and my baby sister stare back at me with matching expressions of horror. "I can explain." Colin's voice carried across the sanctuary. He took a step forward, hands raised, like he was approaching a wild animal. Maybe he was. Something inside me snapped. A laugh bubbled up, high, hysterical, entirely inappropriate for a funeral. "Explain?" The word came out sharp enough to cut. "Explain what, exactly?" "How you're not actually dead. How you're standing here with my sister while I eulogize an empty casket." Bailey stepped forward then, her face tear-streaked. "Chloe, please, don't." The ice in my voice stopped her cold. "Don't you dare speak to me." The church had erupted into chaos. People standing, phones recording, voices rising in confusion and outrage. Through it all, I remained at the podium, watching my life implode with strange detachment. Jonah appeared at my side, solid as a mountain. "Cars waiting at the side entrance," he murmured. "Cameron's already there." I nodded once, straightening my spine. With deliberate calm, I gathered my fallen eulogy pages, smoothed my dress, turned to face the congregation. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice carrying over the din. "Unfortunately, it seems the funeral has been cancelled due to the unexpected resurrection of the deceased." Then I walked out, head high, ignoring Colin's calls and Bailey's sobs. Each step felt like walking through concrete, but I didn't break stride until I was in the car. Cameron's arms around me, Jonah directing the driver to go. "I'll kill him," Cameron seethed. "I'll actually kill him." "No," I said. Watching the church recede through the tinted windows, my hands had stopped shaking. The numbness was back, but different now. Not the fog of grief, but the clarity of purpose. Death would be too easy. I thought of the lipstick on the tie, the missed calls, the perfect coffee and careful goodbye, all the pieces clicking into place like a poison puzzle. "Chloe?" Jonah's voice was careful. "What do you want to do?" I turned from the window, meeting his concerned gaze. "I want to destroy them," I said simply. "Both of them. And I want them to feel every second of it." The car turned onto the highway, carrying me away from the funeral that wasn't. Behind us, my old life lay in ruins. Ahead, something new was taking shape. Something made of rage and betrayal, and the kind of cold fury that could reshape worlds. They thought they'd broken me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 3 days after my husband crashed his own funeral, I sat in my home office, surrounded by papers that proved our entire marriage had been built on lies. Bank statements, property records, email printouts, each one a fresh betrayal laid bare in black and white. "Look at this," Cameron said, pointing to a transaction record. "Regular transfers to an account in the Caymans, starting 2 years ago, right around the time Bailey got her dream job at that consulting firm." My voice was steady, even as my fingers crumpled the paper's edge. "Funny how my little sister suddenly became so successful." Cameron hesitated. "There's something else." She slid another document across my desk. "The beach house in Martha's Vineyard. It's not in Colin's name anymore. He transferred ownership to Bailey 3 months ago." The beach house, where we'd spent our honeymoon, where I'd told him I loved him for the first time. My throat burned with acid. "They're probably there now," I said, standing abruptly. The thought of them together in our special place made me physically ill, hiding out while they figure out their next move. "Chloe," Cameron's voice held a warning. "Don't do anything rash." "Rash?" I laughed, the sound brittle. "I'm done being rash. I'm done being the reactive one." I picked up my phone, dialing a familiar number. "Jonah, remember that contingency plan we discussed? It's time." Within an hour, I was in my corporate office, signing documents that would freeze Colin out of every joint venture, every shared investment, every project he'd built his reputation on. My signature, flowing across page after page, felt like drawing blood. "The board meeting's in 10 minutes, Jonah reported, collecting the papers. "Are you sure about this? Once we announce the restructuring." "I've never been more sure of anything." I stood, smoothing my dress. "Colin thought he was so clever, keeping his affair hidden. He forgot one thing. This company was mine before I ever met him. And I've spent 12 years making sure I had contingencies for every possible scenario, including betrayal, though I'd prayed I'd never need them." The boardroom fell silent as I entered. These men had known me for years, but always as Colin's wife first, CEO second. Today, they'd learned the difference. "Gentlemen," I took my place at the head of the table. "I'm afraid I have some disturbing news about attempts to defraud this company." By the time I finished presenting the evidence, carefully edited to protect the company while exposing Colin's financial manipulations, faces around the table had turned from skeptical to thunderous. The vote to remove him from all positions and freeze his assets was unanimous. I was signing the final resolution when my phone buzzed. Bailey's name lit up the screen. After 3 days of silence, now she wanted to talk. I excused myself to my office, heart pounding, answered on the last ring. "Chloe, please." Her voice was raw, desperate. "You have to let me explain." "Explain what?" "How long you've been sleeping with my husband, how much of my money you took." "It's not like that." She was crying now. "You don't understand. Colin said he'd help me with my debts, said he'd make sure I never had to struggle like we did growing up. He promised me forever." I cut in. "Looks like neither of us should have believed him." "Please," she was begging now. "I know I messed up, But you're my sister. We're family. The word hit me like a slap. Family. My voice dropped to a whisper. Family doesn't do what you did. The sister I loved. She died the moment she walked into that church with my husband. What are you going to do? I thought of the beach house, of 12 years of memories tainted by lies, of the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, seeking comfort from her big sister. I'm going to take everything, I said quietly. The house, the money, the reputation you built with my resources. And when I'm done, you'll both remember what it feels like to have nothing. Chloe, I hung up, hands shaking, pressed my forehead against the cool glass of my office window, watching the city sprawl below. Somewhere out there, my husband and sister were planning their next move, thinking they still held cards I didn't know about. My phone buzzed again. A text from Jonah. Found something interesting in Colin's old emails. Meeting mentioned between him and someone named Kayla from your support group, dated 6 months ago. I stared at the message, pieces clicking into place. Kayla, the quiet one who'd joined our grief support group last year, who'd listened so sympathetically to my stories about losing our mother, who'd asked so many questions about my life, my marriage, my company. Well, wasn't that interesting? I picked up my phone again. Time to arrange a coffee date with an old friend. Kayla was exactly where I expected to find her, at our support group's regular coffee shop, tucked into the corner table she always claimed. Her hands fidgeted with her cup sleeve as I approached, shredding the cardboard into tiny pieces. Chloe, her surprise seemed genuine. Almost. I saw the news. Are you okay? I slid into the seat across from her, studying her face. 6 months ago, I'd held this woman while she cried about her dead husband. Now I wondered if those tears had been as fake as mine would become. Actually, I said, keeping my voice gentle, I was hoping you could tell me about your meeting with Colin last spring. The coffee sleeve stopped moving. Her fingers went still. I don't know what you're talking about. No? I pulled out my phone. Pulled up the email Jonah had found, because Colin's calendar shows a 2-hour lunch with you at Le Bernardin. Interesting choice for a grief support meeting. Color drained from her face. It's not, I can explain. Please do. I leaned back, crossing my legs. Explain how my husband hired you to infiltrate my support group. To what? Spy on me? Learn my weaknesses? He said he was worried about you. The words burst out of her. Said you were hiding things, that you weren't processing your mother's death properly. He just wanted to help. I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make nearby customers turn. Help? By having a stranger monitor my emotional state. By using my grief as a weapon. I didn't know about your sister, she whispered. I swear. When I saw the news, save it. I stood, smoothing my skirt. You should know, I've forwarded evidence of your involvement to the support group's ethics board. I expect they'll be quite interested in how you exploited vulnerable members for profit. Her face crumpled. Please don't. This job is all I have. Should have thought of that before you sold my trust for a paycheck. I left her crying into her coffee, my heels clicking against the floor like hammer strikes. Outside, Cameron was waiting in the car. Well? She asked as I slid in. Colin had her watching me for months, reporting back on everything I said in group. My hands clenched in my lap. He was gathering intelligence, building a profile of my vulnerabilities. That manipulative bastard. Cameron's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. What's our next move? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Walsh, a man's voice, official sounding. This is Detective Morris from the Fraud Division. We've received some concerning reports about your company's recent activities. My blood went cold. What kind of reports? Allegations of insider trading, market manipulation. Several board members have come forward with documentation. Of course, Colin's contingency plan. Turn my own board against me. Make me look unstable, vengeful, criminal. I see, I said carefully. And these board members, would they happen to include James Porter and Richard Klein? I'm not at liberty to The same board members who were involved in Colin's offshore account scheme. The one I have documented evidence of. Silence on the line. Then, perhaps we should meet to discuss this in person. My lawyer will be in touch. I hung up, heart racing. Cameron, I need you to call Jonah. Tell him to implement Protocol B immediately. She nodded, already dialing. What about the beach house? The surveillance team reported movement there this morning. I closed my eyes, remembering Bailey's desperate call, the sister I'd practically raised, plotting against me in the house where I'd once felt safest. Leave it for now, I said finally. They'll expect me to go after the house first. Let them think they have a safe harbor while we dismantle everything else. My phone buzzed with a text. Jonah, board members backing down, found leverage. But there's something else. Bailey accessed her old company email. Message to Colin mentions insurance. Something about files from your mother's estate. The car suddenly felt too small. Our mother's estate, the source of my initial capital, the foundation of everything I'd built. What could Bailey have found? Take me home, I told Cameron. I need to check something. An hour later, I stood in my home office, staring at an empty safe hidden behind my mother's portrait. The contents, documents I'd thought long buried, were gone. My sister's voice echoed in my head. You don't understand. Maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't understand everything yet, but I would. I picked up my phone, dialing Jonah's number. Remember that offshore account we traced to the Caymans? I need everything you can find about transactions from 15 years ago, around the time my mother died. That far back, what are we looking for? I touched the empty safe, feeling the cold metal under my fingers. The truth about how our family really fell apart. The files from my mother's estate weren't the only things missing. As I moved through the house that night, I noticed other absences, small things at first. The antique locket my mother left me, the folder of childhood photos I kept in my desk, even my old diary from high school. Bailey hadn't just taken evidence, she'd taken memories. Found something, Jonah said, his voice tight through the speakerphone. 3 days before your mother's death, she transferred nearly $2 million to an account in Bailey's name. The next day, she changed her will. I gripped the edge of my desk. Changed it how? Originally, everything was split equally between you and Bailey. The new version left you controlling interest in the company. But, he paused, there was a condition. If certain documents ever became public, control would revert to Bailey. What documents? Still working on that. But Chloe, there's more. That money your mother transferred, it bounced back 2 weeks later from Colin's personal account. The room tilted sideways. Colin had known my sister since she was 16. Had he been playing this game even then? My phone buzzed, Cameron calling. Turn on channel 7, she said without preamble. Now, I fumbled for the remote. The news anchor's voice filled my office. Shocking allegations about Walsh Industries CEO, Chloe Walsh. Documents released today suggest a pattern of corporate espionage and financial manipulation dating back to her mother's death. Her sister, Bailey Walsh, released a statement. The screen cut to Bailey, looking perfectly poised in a designer suit. My suit, I realized with a jolt. One I'd bought her last Christmas. I never wanted this to become public, she said, eyes wide with practiced concern. But after seeing what Chloe's done, the people she's hurt, I can't stay silent. Our mother trusted her with everything, and look how she's abused that trust. The remote cracked in my hand. That manipulative little. There's more. Cameron cut in. She's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Of course she had. Strike while the scandal was fresh, while the board was scared. Classic Colin strategy, which meant he was the one pulling the strings. My other line beeped, unknown number. Don't, Cameron warned, but I was already answering. Hello, darling. Colin's voice, smooth as poison, caught the news. Enjoying your puppet show? He chuckled, always so quick to anger. That's your problem, Chloe. You let emotion cloud your judgment, just like your mother did. Don't you dare talk about my mother. Why not? I knew her better than you think, better than you ever did. His tone shifted, became almost gentle. It's not too late to stop this. Sign over control of the company. And all those old secrets stay buried. Everyone wins. Everyone except me. You'll keep your reputation, your dignity. Isn't that worth something? I thought of Bailey wearing my clothes, sitting in my boardroom, trying to take my life piece by piece. Go to hell. Have it your way, he sighed. But before you make any moves tomorrow, you might want to check your private server, the one with all those contingency plans you're so proud of. Interesting reading. The line went dead. My hands shook as I pulled up my secure login. No, I whispered. No, no, no. The server was empty. Every file, every backup, every carefully constructed safeguard, gone. Chloe? Cameron's voice seemed far away. What is it? They have everything. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Every plan, every strategy. They're not just trying to take the company, they're trying to erase me. The silence stretched. Then Cameron said quietly, maybe it's time to call Kayla. What? Why would I? Because she wasn't just spying for Colin. Think about it. She had access to your real emotions, your unguarded moments. If anyone knows what they're planning. I closed my eyes, remembered Kayla's shredded coffee sleeve, her desperate plea. This job is all I have. Make the call, I told Cameron. But first, I need you to drive me somewhere. An hour later, I stood in front of my childhood home, empty now, waiting for renovation. The key was still hidden under the loose brick by the garden, just like when we were kids. Inside, everything was sheets and shadows. But there, in the back of my mother's closet, behind the loose panel where she'd hidden birthday presents, a metal box I hadn't seen in 15 years. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, a letter, addressed to me in my mother's handwriting. And beneath it, a USB drive labeled simply, The Truth. Oh, Mom, I whispered. What were you trying to tell me? The truth about our family's fall was in my hands. But was I ready to learn it? The USB drive sat on my desk like a live grenade, while Kayla perched nervously in the visitor's chair. Her eyes kept darting between me and the door, like she couldn't decide which was more dangerous. Talk, I said. Everything you know about their plan. She twisted her hands in her lap. Colin. He said your mother's death wasn't what everyone thought. That there were documents proving you'd manipulated things to get control of the company. That's a lie. Is it? Her voice strengthened slightly, because he showed me bank records, phone logs, evidence that you were meeting with board members weeks before she died. My throat went dry. I was 20. Of course I was meeting with board members. Mom was grooming me to take over eventually. Eventually, Kayla echoed. But not that soon. Not unless something happened to her. The implication hit me like a physical blow. You think that I had something to do with? Colin said the truth would destroy you. That's why he needed someone close. Someone who could watch for signs you were cracking under the guilt. I laughed, the sound brittle. And Bailey, was she part of this twisted theory? Bailey found something in your mother's papers, something that made her believe. My phone buzzed. Jonah. The board meeting's starting. Bailey and Colin just arrived. I checked the time. 8:45. 15 minutes until they tried to take everything. Show me, I told Kayla. Show me exactly what Colin showed you. She pulled out her phone, fingers trembling as she pulled up emails. There they were, documents showing meetings, transfers, conversations I barely remembered from 15 years ago. All carefully arranged to paint a damning picture. The perfect daughter, Kayla said softly, who couldn't wait to inherit. I stared at the evidence against me, feeling sick. Then I saw it. A tiny detail in one of the bank statements. A routing number I recognized. Call Cameron, I told Kayla. Tell her to meet us at the office, now. The drive downtown was a blur. My mind raced, pieces falling into place. That routing number, I'd seen it before, in Colin's Cayman accounts. We reached the office building, with 5 minutes to spare. Cameron was waiting in the lobby, holding a manila envelope. Got what you asked for, she said. But Chloe, are you sure about this? I wasn't sure about anything anymore, except that I needed answers. The boardroom fell silent as I walked in. Bailey sat in my usual chair, wearing another outfit from my closet. Colin stood behind her, hand on her shoulder, the perfect united front. Chloe, Bailey said, all false sympathy. This is a closed meeting. You're not authorized to. Funny thing about authorization, I cut in, moving to the head of the table. It depends on who's really in charge, doesn't it, Colin? He stiffened slightly. What are you talking about? I pulled out my mother's USB drive. 15 years ago, someone started building a shadow network inside this company. Secret accounts, hidden transfers, all traced back to one source. I met his eyes. You've been playing this game since before Mom died, haven't you? That's ridiculous, Bailey snapped. He didn't even work here then. No, but his father did. The room went very still. Colin's face had turned to stone. Robert Walsh, I continued. Board member, trusted advisor, and the man who helped set up our offshore accounts. The same accounts you're using now. You can't prove any of this, Colin said, but there was a tremor in his voice. I plugged in the USB drive. Documents filled the screen. Correspondence between my mother and Robert Walsh. Plans to expose his embezzlement scheme. Her final letter to me, explaining everything. Mom knew, I said softly. She was going to turn your father in. That's why she changed her will, isn't it? Insurance against what she knew was coming. Bailey had gone pale. Colin? What is she talking about? She's lying, he snarled. Just like she lied about what? My meetings with the board? The ones your father arranged to keep me distracted while he cleaned out the accounts? I turned to Bailey. He didn't tell you that part, did he? How his family has been stealing from ours for decades. Enough. Colin slammed his hand on the table. This is all very entertaining, but we have a vote to. No vote today. Cameron stepped forward, dropping her envelope on the table. Federal investigators are on their way up. Seems they're very interested in those Cayman accounts, especially the ones linked to Robert Walsh's old employee ID. Colin moved faster than I expected, lunging for the door. Security caught him before he made it halfway. Bailey, I said quietly, it's not too late to choose the right side. She looked between us, tears streaming down her face. Then she stood, walked to Colin, and slapped him hard across the face. I trusted you, she whispered. As federal agents filled the room, I watched my sister crumple into Cameron's arms. The truth had come out, but the cost was higher than I'd imagined. And something told me we weren't finished paying it yet. The interrogation room smelled like stale coffee and desperation. Colin sat across the table, his designer suit wrinkled, his perfect mask finally cracking. I'd waited 3 hours to face him, watching through one-way glass, as federal agents picked apart his lies. 10 minutes, the agent said, closing the door behind me. Colin's smile was ghost-thin. Come to gloat? No. I sat down, folding my hands on the table. I came to understand. Understand what? How I played you. His laugh was hollow. It wasn't hard. You were so desperate to be loved, to have the perfect family, just like your mother. Was that why you chose me? Because I reminded you of her? Something flickered in his eyes. I chose you because you were convenient, young, naive, sitting on a fortune you didn't deserve. Like the fortune your father stole? I leaned forward. The money he embezzled while pretending to be Mom's friend. My father was brilliant, Colin snarled. He built this company as much as yours did. But your precious mother couldn't see that. She was going to ruin everything. So you finished what he started. Married me to get inside. Used Bailey to. Bailey, he sneered. So easy to manipulate. All those daddy issues. That desperate need for approval. One kind word, and she was putty in my hands. The door burst open. Bailey stood there, trembling. Cameron, right behind her. You son of a bitch, my sister whispered. Colin's face went slack. Baby, I didn't mean. Don't. Bailey's voice cracked. I heard everything. The agents let me listen. She turned to me, tears streaming. Chloe, I'm so sorry. I thought he made me believe you were the villain. Divide and conquer, I said softly, just like his father taught him. You think you've won. Colin's composure shattered completely. You have no idea what's coming. Your mother's death wasn't an accident, and neither was your father's. You think my dad worked alone? The people behind this. The door opened again. Jonah entered, followed by a distinguished older man I'd never seen before. That's enough, son, the man said. Colin went white. Dad, Robert Walsh, looked every bit his 70 years as he approached the table. It's over. I've given them everything. Names, accounts, evidence going back 30 years. You can't, Colin whispered. They'll kill us. No one's killing anyone, Robert said. I made a deal. Full immunity in exchange for testimony against the entire network. I stared at the man who'd helped destroy my family. Why now? He met my eyes, and I saw genuine grief there. Because your mother was right about everything. And watching my son destroy another generation. I couldn't live with it anymore. Colin lunged across the table, hands reaching for his father's throat. Agents swarmed in, restraining him, as he screamed accusations of betrayal. Through it all, I stood perfectly still, watching the scene like it was happening to someone else, until I felt Bailey's hand slip into mine. What do we do now? She whispered. I squeezed her hand, remembering all the times I'd protected her when we were young. We rebuild. Together. After everything I did. You were a pawn, I said. We both were. But we're not pieces anymore. We're the players. As they led Colin away, still shouting, I turned to Robert. The complete truth about everything, including my parents. He nodded heavily. You deserve that much. But Chloe, some truths are harder than others. I can handle it. Can you? He pulled out an envelope, handed it to me. Your mother wrote this the night she died. She knew what was coming, but she thought she had more time to prepare you, to finish what she started. My hands shook as I opened it. Mom's familiar handwriting filled the page. My dearest Chloe, if you're reading this, I failed to protect you from what's coming, but I didn't fail to prepare you. Everything I've done, the lessons, the training, the seemingly endless preparation, was for this moment. They think they've won, but they don't understand what you're capable of. What we built isn't just a company, it's a weapon. Use it wisely. Use it for justice. All my love, Mom. I looked up at the room full of broken men and mended relationships, feeling the weight of legacy settle onto my shoulders. Jonah, I said quietly, call the board. It's time to finish what my mother started. Bailey squeezed my hand again. Whatever you need, I'm here. Cameron nodded firmly. We all are. The truth had nearly destroyed us. Now it would set us free. But first, we had work to do. The beach house looked exactly as I remembered. Weathered gray shingles, white trim, endless ocean beyond. But this time, I wasn't here to hide memories. I was here to make new ones. Ready? Bailey asked, carrying a box of files up the front steps. I nodded, unlocking the door. The foyer still smelled of sea salt and old wood, but the rest of the house had been transformed. Gone were Colin's pretentious art pieces and designer furniture. In their place, corkboards covered in documents, computers humming with data, the command center of our investigation. Cameron looked up from her laptop. Robert's testimony just implicated 3 more board members. The FBI's moving on them now. Good. I spread Mom's letter on the kitchen island, my touchstone these past weeks. What about the offshore accounts? Frozen, Jonah reported. Every penny they stole is being traced. But Chloe, he hesitated. There's something else. Something about your father's death. My heart stuttered. What about it? He pulled up an email chain. Robert confessed that your father discovered the embezzlement first. He was gathering evidence, planning to expose everything. The car accident that killed him wasn't an accident, I finished. The words tasted like ash. Bailey's hand found mine. There's more. Mom knew. That's why she started training you so young. Why she was so insistent about you learning every aspect of the business. She was preparing me for war, I whispered, and I never even knew we were fighting. The doorbell rang. Unexpected, since only our small team knew we were here. Cameron checked the security camera and went pale. It's Kayla, and she's not alone. On the screen, Kayla stood on our porch beside an elderly woman I'd never seen before. But something about her face. That's impossible, Bailey breathed. But it wasn't. When I opened the door, I found myself staring into eyes exactly like my mother's. "Hello, Chloe," the woman said softly. "I'm your Aunt Margaret, your mother's twin. The aunt we'd been told died before we were born. The aunt whose existence had been erased from every family record." "I know this is a shock," Kayla said quickly. "But after everything happened with Colin, I started digging. Found her living under an assumed name in Seattle." "Why?" I managed. "Why did Mom hide you?" Margaret's smile was sad. "To protect me, and you. I was the company's original CFO, before your mother. I discovered the corruption first, tried to fight it. They tried to kill me, just like they later killed your father. Your mother helped me disappear, then took my place fighting them. And now?" Bailey asked. "Now I have 30 years of evidence against every person involved in this conspiracy. Names, dates, transactions, everything your mother and I collected. Together with Robert's testimony, we can end this," I finished. "All of it." The next hours were a blur of revelations. Margaret's evidence filled in every gap, connected every dot. The corruption went deeper than we'd imagined, but so did the groundwork our mother had laid to fight it. Near dawn, I found myself on the beach, watching the sun rise over the Atlantic. Bailey joined me, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "Remember when we used to sneak out here as kids?" she asked. "Watch the sunrise and pretend we were pirates? Planning imaginary adventures." I smiled. "Mom used to catch us every time. She was teaching us even then how to be brave, how to fight for what matters." Bailey turned to me. "I'm so sorry I forgot those lessons." We both did, but we remember now. Behind us, the beach house hummed with purpose. Inside, our team was preparing to release everything. All the evidence, all the truth, all the justice our parents died protecting. "What happens after?" Bailey asked. "When this is all over?" I thought of Mom's letter, of the weapon she'd built disguised as a company, of the strength she'd planted in me, disguised as business lessons. "We keep fighting," I said. "Not for revenge anymore, for something bigger." The sunrise painted the waves gold, like possibility made liquid. In that light, I could almost see Mom watching us. Not the grieving daughter and the manipulated sister, but the warriors she'd raised us to be. "Together?" Bailey asked. I took her hand, feeling the weight of legacy transform into purpose. "Together," I promised. "We have a lot of work to do." The sun cleared the horizon, burning away the last shadows of our old life. Ahead lay truth, justice, and the real adventure our mother had prepared us for all along. This time, we were ready.